Hello my needle drops, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Time for an album review. And I can't ignore the requests any longer, so I'm going to give the people what they want. A review of the new Red Hot Chili Peppers album, I'm With You. For me, the whole underground versus mainstream argument dynamic, it's not really there in the internet age. It's no longer relevant. In my head, there's just two kinds of music. There's music I like, and there's music I don't. And I used to like the Red Hot Chili Peppers back when I was a kid. I grew up on those guys. I remember playing One Hot Minute, tape cassette, in my boombox all day. And I used to freak out whenever cuts from Blood Sugar Sex Magic would come on the radio. But my infatuation with them didn't really last all that long, I guess. And not that they had betrayed me or disappointed me or anything like that. I was just into different sounds once I reached high school and college. I wasn't following what these guys were doing. I was listening to a lot of punk music and a lot of metal music. So if this review doesn't have the kind of insight and experience that you wish it had, remember, you requested it. You did. And another thing that gets a lot of requests is that I should let Cal Chuchesta review an album. And I'm not exactly sure I'm ready to let that happen, especially since he's Cal Chuchesta. But what I will do right now is just sort of let him give some background information on the band.
Thank you, Anthony. The band, the Red Hot Jalapeno Pepper, is a super duper group, rock music that's very funky with a lot of bass, like dom dom da dom. And their first album came out before Anthony was born, and California. Thank you. Thank you.
Like Cake or Foo Fighters, the Red Hot Chili Peppers is another one of those radio rock bands that hit it big in the 90s but have somehow managed to stay relevant, stay whole, and stay producing music well on past 2010. And the latest LP from these guys, I'm With You, comes at kind of a pivotal change for the band. Their longtime guitarist, John Frusciante, has left the group and has been replaced by another guitar player, Josh Klinghoffer.
Now, if you're
a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, you already know how monstrous of a guitar player and a musician John Frusciante is. And you know that when he rejoined the band in the late 90s, he just sort of brought this ambition necessary to make double albums like Stadium Arcadium. Switching from John to Josh has meant a change in dynamics for these guys, but Red Hot Chili Peppers with this album seem kind of determined to not let that be the downgrade that everybody is expecting it to be. The strengths and weaknesses are different now, and they sort of realign the way they make records accordingly. The really flashy, strong, fiery guitar playing a lot of Chili Pepper fans have come to love is not on this record, and hell, like, even Flea's bass lines have been kind of dumbed down a little bit, purposely, intentionally, in order to make an album that's a little more accessible, a little leaner, a little more straightforward, a little catchier. And of course, among all these tracks, these guys kind of jump from one stylistic idea to another. Because of that, I think this is the kind of record that's really going to resonate most with hardcore fans that have followed the Chili Peppers up until this point. There's some really standout tracks on here. Some of the nicest I've ever heard from this band. But still, there are moments on here where these guys indulge in bossa nova, in a piano ballad, in an acoustic guitar intro, like a trumpet solo, hand claps in the background. And there's even a song on here where Anthony Kiedis is like doing these really shouty, narrated verses. These guys are basically taking advantage of this lineup change to step into a lot of different territories, and I think that's something a hardcore fan would be more interested in, seeing these guys really experiment, because you're familiar with their sound, you're familiar with what their capabilities are, so maybe you want to see them do something different. But I would have preferred something a little more consistent. The first track that I think I really loved on the album was Brendan's Death Song, which opens with an acoustic guitar. Kind of starts off to be a ballad, I assumed at first. And then Anthony Kiedis' vocal, I'm not praising his lyrics, but his vocal style is still really strong, still really, you could pick it up just about anywhere, and he hasn't lost it. But what I love most about that track is that it builds, which makes it so much more different than any other song on the album. As it switches from verse to chorus to verse to chorus, the instrumentation behind the song is just getting louder and louder and more tense and just more, there's more passion, there are more layers, and the bridge breaks into this like psychedelic garage freakout that I might hear on a Stooges album or something. And despite the fact that there are some changes on this album, there are moments that just sound great, are really catchy, and just sound like kind of classic Red Hot Chili Peppers, like Ethiopia, one of my favorite moments on here, where Anthony Kiedis isn't so much singing lyrics, but just kind of making these vowel sounds with his mouth, and it ends up being catchier than any set of words could have been. And toward the end of this LP, Meet Me at the Corner, I think that's one of the best slower songs that these guys have ever written. Though a lot of fans are going to cry over John Frusciante leaving, I think the guitar playing on that track from Josh, he really shows some prowess. He really shines on that track with the chord progression, with the fluttering, the embellishments he plays, just the tone of his guitar, just how nice and rich it sounds. But it seems like for every spot on this thing that I love, there's a spot that I hate, to be completely honest. There are some songs on here where I feel like Anthony Kiedis, though, I think his voice right now is the strongest and most definitive thing that this LP has going for it. There can be times where he's like lyrically off base for me, like on Rain Dance Maggie, the first track to drop from this LP, and the last track on the album, Dance, 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 Dance. And there are plenty of other songs on here that feel like Red Hot Chili Peppers. They feel like classic Red Hot Chili Peppers. They have that same momentum you would expect from a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, but it's just not as hot. It's just not as bold. Now overall, I think I could have handled a record from these guys that tailored things back a little bit. That would have been fine. My biggest issue with this LP is that it's just so all over the place, with the moments of bossa nova, with the piano ballads. I'm With You just kind of seemed like a little scatterbrained for me, a lot like the Strokes' last album, unfortunately. I think this could have been a more consistent, a stronger record, my opinion. Overall, I'm kind of feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this. It wasn't bad. It wasn't offensive. There were some great highlights, but a lot of moments where I was just left hanging. But what do you think about this? You asked me what I thought. I want to know what you think. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you a hardcore, long-time Red Hot Chili Peppers fan? What do you think of this in respect to everything else they've done? Let me know. Anthony Fantano, Red Hot Chili Peppers, forever.